How does a single kiss at our high school reunion, shared with my ex right in front of my boyfriend, for nothing but the thrill of attention, become the crack that splits my entire life open? What starts as a joke, me craving to feel admired again, ends with the person who loved me most, turning cold, gathering receipts, and making sure everyone knows the truth. Can you really call it betrayal if I never meant for it to matter? Or am I just rewriting the story so I won't be the villain in the end? The kiss lasted exactly 12 seconds. I know because Brett counted afterward, laughing as he pulled away from me, while Simon stood frozen 3 feet away, holding 2 plastic cups of punch like they were evidence of his own stupidity. 12 seconds of pure nostalgia, Brett said, his arm still around my waist. Just like old times. Right, Idella? I should have stepped away immediately. I should have apologized to Simon, explained that it meant nothing, that I'd had too much wine and got caught up in the moment. Instead, I giggled. Actually giggled, like I was 17 again, and Brett Fuller was still the quarterback who made every girl in Jefferson High weak in the knees. God, we were such a cute couple back then, I said, looking directly at my phone as Callie held it up, recording everything. The red light blinked at me like a warning I chose to ignore. Simon's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, hurt, embarrassment, and then something I'd never seen before. A kind of cold calculation that made my stomach flip. He set down the punch cups on a nearby table with deliberate precision. "I'll be in the car," he said quietly. "Simon, wait." I started, but he was already walking away, his shoulders rigid with controlled anger. "Let him go," Brett whispered in my ear. "He never deserved you anyway. Remember how we used to sneak out behind the gym?" The reunion hall buzzed with conversations and 80s music, but I felt like everyone was watching us. Maybe they were. The Jefferson High class of 2009 had always loved their drama, and I'd just given them the best show of the night. Callie lowered her phone, grinning. "Girl, that was amazing. You looked so happy. When's the last time Simon made you smile like that?" I couldn't remember. That was the problem. "It was just a kiss," I said, more to convince myself than anyone else. "High school reunion stuff. Everyone does it." "Everyone doesn't do it in front of their boyfriend of 3 years," said Jenny Morrison, who'd been standing nearby with her husband. Her voice carried that particular tone of judgment wrapped in fake concern that I remembered from high school. "Mind your own business, Jenny," Callie snapped. "Idella's allowed to have fun." But Jenny was already walking away, probably to tell everyone else about what she'd witnessed. I watched her go, feeling the first real pang of regret. Not about the kiss itself. That had felt incredible, like I was alive again after months of feeling invisible, but about doing it so publicly. "You okay, babe?" Brett asked, his hand moving to the small of my back. "You look worried." "I'm fine," I lied. I should probably go find Simon." "Why? So he can make you feel guilty about one little kiss? Come on, Idella, you're 32, not 92. You're allowed to remember what passion feels like." The word passion hit me like a physical blow. When was the last time Simon and I had been passionate about anything? He came home from teaching, graded papers, watched Netflix, and went to bed. I went to work, managed social media accounts for small businesses, came home, and watched him grade papers. We were like roommates who occasionally had sex. "It wasn't about passion," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were a lie. "It was just nostalgia." Brett laughed, that same confident sound that had made me fall for him 15 years ago. "Sure it was. That's why you're still thinking about it." He was right, and I hated that he was right. I was thinking about it, about how his lips had felt familiar and exciting at the same time, about how every eye in the room had been on me, how I'd felt beautiful and desired and reckless in a way I hadn't felt in years. My phone buzzed with a text from Simon. "I'm leaving. Find your own way home." "Shit," I muttered, showing Callie the message. "I'll drive you," she said immediately. "But first, let's get another drink. You need to decompress. I should go after him. And say what? That you're sorry for feeling alive for 5 minutes. Please. If he can't handle you having a past, that's his problem. I looked around the decorated gym, at all the faces I'd grown up with. Some were watching me with curiosity, others with disapproval. A few looked envious. The attention felt like a drug I'd forgotten I was addicted to. One more drink, I decided, then I'll deal with Simon. But as Brett ordered us shots at the cash bar, and as Callie posted the kiss video to her Instagram story with the caption, "Some things never change, Norshore reunion vibes, Balshul living her best life," I had no idea that I'd just set off a chain reaction that would destroy everything I'd spent 3 years building with the one person who'd actually loved me for who I was, not who I used to be. The notification sounds from my phone started immediately. Likes, comments, shares. Each ping felt like validation, like proof that I was still worth looking at, still worth wanting. I turned my phone face down, but I could still hear it buzzing against the table. "You're going viral," Callie laughed, checking her own phone. "This is already at 50 likes and it's only been up for 3 minutes. "Is that good or bad?" I asked, suddenly feeling less confident. "It's attention, honey, and attention is always good." But as I watched Brett charm a group of our old classmates, as I felt the familiar flutter of being associated with the most popular guy in the room, I couldn't shake the image of Simon's face. The way his expression had changed from confusion to something colder, more final. I'd hurt him. I knew I'd hurt him. But I'd felt so alive in that moment, so seen and desired and important. Was it really so wrong to want to feel that way again? My phone buzzed with a text from my mum. "Saw Callie's post. Call me." Then another from my dad. "Disappointed." And another from Simon's sister Hannah. "Really?" The validation high was starting to crash, replaced by a growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. But Brett was back, sliding into the seat next to me, his hand finding my thigh under the table. "So," he said, his voice low and intimate, "want to get out of here? I know a place we could go to really catch up." I should have said no. I should have called an Uber and gone home to Simon. I should have apologized and meant it, and worked to repair what I'd just damaged. Instead, I looked at Brett's confident smile, felt his hand warm on my leg, and thought about going home to Simon's disappointed silence and another night of feeling invisible. "Let me think about it," I said, and I knew I was already lost. I woke up the next morning to 347 notifications on my phone and Simon's side of the bed still empty. He'd come home at some point, his work clothes were in the hamper, and there was a coffee mug in the sink, but he'd clearly left early to avoid seeing me. The video had exploded overnight. Callie's Instagram story had been screenshotted and shared across Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. I watched myself kiss Brett over and over, seeing it through fresh eyes each time. Did I really look that desperate? That hungry for attention? The comments were a mixed bag. "Get it, girl." "Poor boyfriend. She looks so happy. This is so disrespectful. Living her best life." I feel bad for the guy in the background. I screenshotted the positive ones and deleted the negative comments from my own posts. If people couldn't understand that it was just harmless fun, that was their problem. My phone rang. "Mum." "Idella Marie March, what in God's name were you thinking?" "It was just a kiss, Mum. At a high school reunion. It's not like I murdered someone." "In front of Simon?" "That poor boy looked devastated in that video." I rolled my eyes. "Simon's fine. He's just being dramatic." "Dramatic? Honey, you humiliated him in front of everyone you both know. How is he supposed to face those people again?" "He doesn't even like those people. He spent the whole night complaining about having to go." There was a long pause. "Is that how you're justifying this? Because he didn't want to go to your reunion?" "I'm not justifying anything because there's nothing to justify. It was a moment of nostalgia with my high school boyfriend. Simon's making it into something it wasn't. And what was it exactly? I hesitated. What was it? It was fun. When's the last time I had fun, Mom? When's the last time someone looked at me like I was special? Simon looks at you like you're special every day. No, he doesn't. He looks at me like I'm furniture, like I'm just there. Another pause. Sweetheart, are you happy? The question hit me harder than I expected. Was I happy? I had a decent job, a nice apartment, a stable relationship with a good man. On paper, everything looked perfect. But when was the last time I'd felt excited about anything? When had I last felt beautiful, desired, worth fighting for? I don't know, I admitted. Then you need to figure that out before you destroy something good out of boredom. After she hung up, I sat in the empty apartment, scrolling through more comments and notifications. My phone buzzed with a text from Brett. Had fun last night. Coffee later? We hadn't done anything after the reunion. Callie had driven me home, and I'd found Simon already in bed, pretending to be asleep. But the text made me feel that flutter again, that sense of being wanted. I was typing a response when another text came through, this one from Simon. Working late today, don't wait up. No, good morning. No, we need to talk. Just cold, distant politeness that somehow hurt worse than anger would have. I deleted my response to Brett and put my phone away. I needed to focus on work, on normal life, on proving that this wasn't a big deal. But at the office, I could feel eyes on me. My coworker Jessica approached my desk with a carefully neutral expression. So, saw some interesting posts from your reunion last night. It was fun, I said, trying to sound casual. Good to see old friends. I bet. That guy you were kissing, is he single? The question felt loaded. Why? Just curious. I mean, since you're with Simon and all. I turned back to my computer. It was just a reunion thing, not a big deal. But it felt like a big deal when my supervisor, Karen, called me into her office an hour later. Idella, I need to talk to you about social media presence and professional image. My stomach dropped. Is there a problem? There have been some posts circulating that mention our company. While we don't typically monitor employees' personal social media, when it affects our professional reputation, it was just a high school reunion. I wasn't representing the company. Your LinkedIn profile lists us as your employer. When clients see videos of our employees in compromising situations, it reflects on all of us. Compromising? I kissed someone. I didn't rob a bank. Karen's expression remained neutral. I'm not making a judgment about your personal life. I'm simply asking you to be mindful of how your online presence might impact your professional relationships. It was a warning. A polite, HR-approved warning, but a warning nonetheless. I spent the rest of the day alternating between anger and anxiety. This was ridiculous. People were acting like I'd committed some terrible crime, when all I'd done was kiss my high school boyfriend at a reunion. It was normal. It was harmless. My phone buzzed throughout the day, with more comments, more shares, more opinions from people who didn't know me or my relationship. I found myself refreshing the posts obsessively, reading every reaction, screenshotting the supportive ones to send to Callie. By lunch, Brett had texted 3 more times. Thinking about you. That kiss brought back memories. Free for dinner tonight. Each message made my heart race a little faster. When was the last time someone had pursued me like this? When had Simon last sent me a text that wasn't about groceries or schedules? I was staring at Brett's latest message when my phone rang. Simon's mom. Idella, dear, I think we need to talk. Ruth had always been polite to me, but there was something different in her voice now. Something cold. Hi, Mrs. Feld, what's up? I saw the video from your reunion last night. Of course she had. Everyone had seen it. It was just... I don't care what it was, she interrupted, and I'd never heard her use that tone before. What I care about is my son. Simon is a good man. He's kind and loyal, and he loves you. and you humiliated him in front of everyone. Mrs. Feld, I think you're overreacting. Am I? Because he called me this morning, and I haven't heard him sound that hurt since his father left. The comparison stung. Simon's dad had abandoned the family when Simon was 12, leaving Ruth to raise 2 kids alone. It had shaped Simon's entire approach to relationships, his need for loyalty, his fear of abandonment, his careful way of loving that felt safe but never quite passionate. It wasn't like that, I said weakly. Then what was it like? Explain to me how kissing another man in front of my son was anything other than cruel. I couldn't. I ended the call feeling worse than before, but also defensive. Everyone was ganging up on me, making me the villain in a story that wasn't that simple. They didn't understand what it felt like to be taken for granted, to feel invisible in your own relationship. That evening, I came home to find Simon organizing papers at the kitchen table. Financial documents, lease agreements, insurance forms. He looked up when I entered, but his expression was unreadable. "We need to talk," he said. Finally. "Yes, we do." I sat across from him, expecting him to yell or cry or demand an explanation. Instead, he just looked at me with those steady brown eyes that had always made me feel safe. "Are you happy with me?" he asked quietly. The question surprised me. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said. Are you happy in this relationship?" I wanted to say yes automatically, but something in his tone stopped me. "Are you?" "I was. I thought you were too." "I am," I said, but it sounded unconvincing even to me. "Then help me understand what happened last night." I took a breath, trying to find the right words. It was just a moment. Nostalgia. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me. "Simon, you're making this bigger than it is. It was one kiss at a high school reunion. People do stupid things at reunions." "Do they?" "Because I've been to reunions, and I've never felt the need to kiss my ex-girlfriend in front of my partner." His calmness was somehow worse than anger. I could fight against anger. This quiet disappointment felt like quicksand. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. Sort of. "I didn't think about how it would affect you." "That's the problem, Idella. You didn't think about me at all." He gathered his papers and stood up. "I'm going to stay at my sister's for a few days. I need some space to figure things out." "Figure what out?" "Whether this relationship is worth saving." He left that night with a small suitcase and his laptop, and I sat alone in our apartment, scrolling through social media and telling myself that everyone was overreacting. It was just a kiss. It wasn't the end of the world. But as I lay in bed alone, Brett's text messages glowing on my phone screen, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And worse, I wasn't sure I wanted to. 3 days passed without a word from Simon. I told myself I didn't care, that I was enjoying the space and freedom. But every morning I woke up expecting to find a text from him. And every evening I went to bed disappointed. Brett, on the other hand, texted constantly. Funny memes, memories from high school, compliments about how amazing I'd looked at the reunion. The attention felt like sunlight after months in a cave. On Thursday, I finally responded, "Want to grab lunch, just as friends?" "Of course," he replied immediately, "just friends." We met at a small cafe across town, somewhere I was unlikely to run into anyone I knew. Brett looked exactly like he had in high school. Tall, athletic, with that confident smile that had made him irresistible to teenage me. He'd kept himself in shape, unlike a lot of our classmates, and he still had that easy charm that made everyone around him feel special. "You look incredible," he said as soon as I sat down. "Seriously, you haven't aged a day since graduation." I felt myself blush. When was the last time Simon had complimented my appearance? "Thanks. You look pretty good yourself." "I try. So, how are things with... what's his name again?" "Simon. And things are... complicated." Brett leaned forward, his expression concerned. "Want to talk about it?" And suddenly, I did. I found myself telling him everything. How Simon and I had fallen into a routine, how I felt invisible most days, how he never seemed excited about anything anymore. Brett listened with perfect attention, nodding and making sympathetic sounds in all the right places. "He sounds boring," Brett said finally. "I mean, no offense, but you're this vibrant, exciting woman, and he's got you feeling like you're not worth paying attention to. That's not right." "It's not that simple, isn't it? Idella, you were always the most alive person in any room. Remember how we used to sneak out and drive to the lake? You'd dare me to jump off the highest rock, and you'd always go first." I remembered. I remembered feeling fearless and beautiful and infinite. When had I stopped feeling that way? "That was a long time ago," I said. "Was it? Because the woman who kissed me at the reunion, that was the same Idella I fell in love with in high school." The word love hung in the air between us. I should have corrected him, should have said it was just nostalgia, just a moment of weakness. Instead, I felt that familiar flutter, that addiction to being wanted. "Brett, I know, you're with someone. But can I ask you something?" I nodded. "When's the last time he made you feel the way you felt Saturday night? When's the last time you felt truly alive?" I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. We talked for 2 hours, about high school, about our dreams back then, about how different our lives had turned out. Brett had moved to Chicago after college, worked in sales, had a brief marriage that ended amicably. He was back in town for a few months, helping his mum settle his dad's estate. "I've thought about you over the years," he said as we prepared to leave. "Wondered what would have happened if we hadn't broken up before college. We were kids. It wouldn't have worked. Maybe, or maybe we would have figured it out." He reached across the table and touched my hand. "Maybe it's not too late to find out." I should have pulled away, should have said I was committed to Simon, that this was just lunch between old friends. Instead, I let his fingers intertwine with mine and felt electricity I hadn't experienced in years. "I should go," I said, but I didn't move. Should and want are two different things. He was right. I should go home, should call Simon, should work on fixing what I'd broken. But I wanted to stay in this moment, in this feeling of being desired and pursued and special. My phone buzzed with a text. "Simon. Coming by to get some things. Will you be home around 6? The real world crashed back in. "I have to go." Brett walked me to my car, and when he hugged me goodbye, it lasted a few seconds too long. Long enough for me to breathe in his cologne, to feel the solid warmth of his chest, to remember what it felt like to be held by someone who couldn't get enough of me. "This was nice," he said, still holding me. "We should do it again soon." "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Since when do you only do good ideas? The Idella I remember never played it safe." He was right again. The old me had been spontaneous, adventurous, willing to take risks. When had I become someone who played it safe? I drove home in a daze, Brett's words echoing in my head. By the time I got there, Simon was already in the bedroom, packing a larger suitcase. "Going somewhere?" I asked from the doorway. "Back to Hannah's. I need more clothes." He moved efficiently, like he'd planned exactly what to take. I watched him fold his favorite sweater, the one I'd bought him for Christmas, and felt a pang of something that might have been regret. "How long are you planning to stay there?" "I don't know yet." "Simon, can we please talk about this? Really talk?" He stopped packing and looked at me. "Okay, talk." But now that I had his attention, I didn't know what to say. That I was sorry. I was sort of, but I was also still buzzing from lunch with Brett, still feeling more alive than I had in months. "I miss you," I said finally. "Do you? Or do you just miss having someone around?" The question stung because it was fair. "That's not... I do miss you. I miss us." "What us, Idella? Because I've been thinking about it, and I'm not sure there's been an us for a while now. We live together, we split bills, we have sex occasionally. But when's the last time we really connected?" I wanted to argue, but he wasn't wrong. We'd fallen into a routine so gradually that I hadn't noticed when we stopped being partners and became roommates. "We can fix that," I said. "Can we? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you already have." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know you, Idella. I know that look on your face, that glow you get when someone's paying attention to you. You had it Saturday night, and you have it right now." My stomach dropped. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you? Because I'm guessing you didn't spend today alone thinking about us." I felt my face flush, which was answer enough. Simon closed his suitcase with deliberate calm. "I thought so." "Simon, wait. For what? For you to decide if you want me or if you want to relive your high school glory days. I'm not going to compete with your past, Idella. I'm not going to beg you to choose me." "You're not competing with anyone." "Aren't I?" He picked up his suitcase and headed for the door. "Because it sure feels like I am, and I'm tired of feeling like I'm losing." After he left, I sat on our bed, surrounded by the empty spaces where his things used to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Brett. "Thanks for lunch. Can't stop thinking about you." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Me too. It was the truth. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about how he made me feel, about the possibility of feeling that alive all the time. But I also couldn't stop thinking about Simon's face when he'd asked if I missed him, about the hurt in his voice when he'd said he was tired of losing. I was standing at a crossroads, and I knew that whatever I chose next would determine everything that came after. I should have chosen Simon, chosen stability and kindness, and the man who'd loved me steadily for 3 years. Instead, I texted Brett back, "Want to have dinner tomorrow?" His response came immediately. "I thought you'd never ask." And just like that, I stepped off the cliff, telling myself I was finally learning to fly when I was really just falling. The dinner with Brett turned into drinks, which turned into a long walk around downtown, which turned into sitting in his car talking until midnight. We didn't do anything wrong. Technically, no kissing, no touching beyond a few casual brushes of hands. But the intention was there, crackling in the air between us like electricity before a storm. "I should go home," I said for the 3rd time, making no move to get out of his car. "Should," he said, echoing our conversation from lunch. "There's that word again." "Brett, I know. You're with someone. You're trying to do the right thing. But can I tell you something?" I nodded, even though I knew I shouldn't want to hear it. "I haven't felt this way about anyone since high school, since you, and I don't think it's just nostalgia." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we got it wrong the first time. Maybe we were supposed to end up together, and it just took us 15 years to figure it out. It was a beautiful fantasy, romantic and dramatic and everything my practical life with Simon wasn't. I could picture it, running away with Brett, starting over somewhere new, being the kind of couple that other people envied. "I can't," I whispered. "You can. You just have to decide what you want more, safety or happiness." When I finally got home at 12:47 a.m., I found Simon sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a stack of papers beside him. He looked up when I entered, and I saw something in his expression that made my stomach clench. "Working late?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Research," he said simply. "For school?" "No." The single word hung in the air. I wanted to ask what he was researching, but something told me I didn't want to know the answer. "I thought you were staying at Hannah's." "I am. I just came to get some things." He gestured to a box by the door that I hadn't noticed. "And to do some paperwork." "What kind of paperwork?" He closed the laptop and looked at me directly. "The kind you do when you're trying to protect yourself." "Protect yourself from what?" "From making the same mistake my father made." The reference to his dad hit like a physical blow. Simon's father had trusted his wife completely, never saw the affair coming, and lost everything in the divorce because he hadn't prepared for the possibility of betrayal. Simon, you're being paranoid. Am I? Because you've been out until almost 1 a.m. on a Friday night, and you're glowing again, same as you were after the reunion. I felt trapped, caught between the truth and a lie that was getting harder to maintain. I was just with Callie. Were you? The question was quiet, but it felt loaded with knowledge I hoped he didn't have. Yes. He pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. It was Callie's Instagram story from 2 hours ago, a photo of her at home with her husband, watching a movie. The timestamp clearly showed she'd been there all evening. My mouth went dry. We hung out earlier. Idella, stop. Just stop lying to me. The word lying hit harder than it should have. Maybe because it was true. I had been lying. To him, to myself, to everyone who asked what was going on. I'm not. You are. You're lying about where you were, who you were with, and probably about a lot of other things. And the worst part is, you're not even good at it. He stood up, gathering his papers. I'm not my father. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't see what's happening while you figure out whether you want to blow up our life. Nothing is happening. Something is happening. Maybe not physically yet, but something. And I'm not going to wait around for you to decide how far you want to take it. He picked up his box and headed for the door. I'll be back Sunday for the rest of my things. I'd appreciate it if you weren't here. After he left, I sat in the silence of our apartment, feeling the walls close in around me. My phone buzzed with a text from Brett. Had an amazing time tonight. Sweet dreams. I stared at the message, torn between the warmth it gave me and the cold reality of what I was losing. Simon was right. Something was happening. I was falling for Brett again, or maybe I was falling for the person I used to be when I was with him. Either way, I was standing on the edge of a decision that would change everything. Saturday morning brought a new crisis. I woke up to find my phone flooded with notifications again, but these weren't about the reunion kiss. Somehow, someone had seen Brett and me at dinner the night before and posted about it. The post was from Jenny Morrison, the same woman who'd judged me at the reunion. Interesting to see Idella march out with her high school boyfriend again last night. Some people never learn. Karma, poor Simon. The comments section was brutal. Wait, she's still seeing that guy. Where was her boyfriend? This is getting messy. Feel so bad for Simon. She's really going to throw away a good relationship for her high school ex. I wanted to delete the post, to explain that it was just dinner between old friends, but I couldn't delete something from Jenny's account. I could only watch as it got shared and commented on, as more people weighed in with their opinions about my life. My mother called before 9 a.m. Idella, what in God's name is going on? Nothing, Mom. People are just gossiping. Are you seeing that boy from high school? His name is Brett, and no, I'm not seeing him. We had dinner, as friends. Friends don't have dinner alone when one of them is in a relationship. Since when do you make the rules about friendship? Since my daughter started making choices that could destroy her life. Honey, what are you doing? I couldn't answer because I didn't know. I was following feelings, chasing the high of being wanted, trying to recapture something I'd lost. But when I tried to put it into words, it sounded selfish and stupid. I'm just figuring things out. By dating your ex-boyfriend while you're living with Simon, I'm not dating anyone. Then what would you call it? I ended the call without answering because I didn't have an answer that would make sense to anyone, including myself. The rest of the weekend was a blur of damage control. I posted a carefully worded message on social media about how people should mind their own business and stop spreading rumors. I called Callie to vent about the gossip and the judgment. I avoided going anywhere I might run into people I knew. But I also texted with Brett constantly, long conversations about everything and nothing, flirting that felt innocent until it didn't, plans for another dinner that we both knew was more than friendship. Sunday evening, I came home to find Simon's key on the kitchen counter and a note. Took what I needed, We'll contact you about the lease. Most of his clothes were gone. His books, his coffee mug, his pillow. The apartment felt hollow, like a stage set after the actors had gone home. I should have felt sad. I should have called him and begged him to come back, to work things out, to give us another chance. Instead, I felt relief mixed with excitement. Relief that I didn't have to keep lying, and excitement about what came next. My phone buzzed with a text from Brett. "Free tonight? I know a great place for dessert." I looked around the empty apartment, at the spaces where Simon's life used to intersect with mine, and made my choice. "Pick me up in an hour," I replied. As I got ready for what I knew would be more than just dessert, I told myself I was finally choosing happiness over safety, passion over comfort, the life I wanted over the life I'd settled for. I didn't realize that I was really choosing destruction over stability, fantasy over reality, and a few moments of feeling special over 3 years of being genuinely loved, but I would learn soon enough. The next few weeks passed in a haze of secret meetings and stolen moments. Brett and I were careful, different restaurants, quiet bars outside of town, long drives to places where we wouldn't be recognized. But small towns have long memories and sharp eyes, and it wasn't long before the whispers started again. I told myself we weren't doing anything wrong. Yes, we'd kissed a few more times. Yes, there was an intimacy growing between us that went beyond friendship. But I was single now. Simon had moved out, changed his address, stopped wearing the promise ring I'd given him for our 2nd anniversary. I was free to see whoever I wanted. The problem was that not everyone saw it that way. "You need to be careful," Callie warned me over lunch. "People are talking." "Let them talk. I'm not doing anything wrong." "Aren't you? Because from the outside, it looks like you blew up a 3-year relationship for a high school fling." "It's not a fling," I said, surprised by how defensive I sounded. "Brett and I have a real connection. We always did." "Honey, you had a connection 15 years ago when you were 17. That doesn't mean it's real now." "It feels real." "So did your relationship with Simon." The comparison stung because it was fair. My relationship with Simon had felt real too, until it started feeling routine. But what Brett and I had was different, electric, passionate, alive in a way that my life with Simon had never been. "This is different," I insisted. "How?" "It just is. Brett sees me, really sees me. He thinks I'm amazing." "Simon thought you were amazing too. He just showed it differently." I didn't want to hear about Simon. Thinking about him made me feel guilty, and I was tired of feeling guilty for finally choosing myself, for finally going after what I wanted. But avoiding thoughts of Simon became impossible when his sister Hannah showed up at my office the next day. "We need to talk," she said, standing beside my desk with her arms crossed. I glanced around the office, aware that my coworkers were watching. "This isn't really the place." "I don't care. You've been avoiding my calls, and someone needs to tell you what you're doing to my brother." My supervisor Karen looked over from her desk, frowning. The last thing I needed was another conversation about professional image. "Can we do this outside?" I asked. Hannah followed me to the parking lot, her expression grim. She looked like Simon. Same dark hair, same serious eyes. But where Simon's intensity felt gentle, hers felt sharp. "He's not eating," she said without preamble. "He's lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. He goes to work, comes home, and sits in his room staring at nothing." "Hannah, I'm sorry he's hurting, but—" "Are you? Because you don't look sorry. You look like someone who's having the time of her life." I felt my defenses rise. "What do you want me to say? That I should have stayed in a relationship that wasn't working just to spare his feelings? I want you to acknowledge that you destroyed a good man for no reason other than your own selfishness. It wasn't working. It was working fine until you decided you needed more attention. Simon loved you, really loved you, and you threw that away for some guy who probably won't even remember your name in 6 months. You don't know Brett. I know his type. I know guys who show up at reunions looking for easy targets, married women, women in long-term relationships, women who are bored and looking for excitement. Her words hit harder than I wanted to admit. That's not what this is. Isn't it? Because that's exactly what it looks like. You got bored, some smooth-talking guy paid attention to you, and you blew up your life for a fantasy. My relationship with Simon was the fantasy. We were roommates, not lovers. We were going through the motions. So you talked to him about it, tried counseling, suggested changes. I hadn't. I'd just let the dissatisfaction build until Brett showed up and offered an escape. Sometimes things just run their course, I said weakly. And sometimes people give up too easily because the alternative requires actual work. She turned to leave, then stopped. He's seeing a lawyer, you know. About the apartment, the shared accounts, all of it. He's protecting himself because he learned from watching our dad get destroyed by someone who couldn't keep her promises. After she left, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to process what she'd said. Simon was seeing a lawyer. That seemed extreme. We weren't married, didn't have kids, didn't even own property together. What was there to protect? But the thought nagged at me for the rest of the day. That evening, I drove by our old apartment, my apartment now, and noticed that Simon's car wasn't in his usual parking spot. It hadn't been there for weeks, but somehow seeing the empty space made everything feel more final. My phone buzzed with a text from Brett. "Miss you, dinner tomorrow?" I was typing a response when another text came through, this one from my father. "Your mother is worried sick. Call home." I hadn't talked to my parents since the day after the reunion. I'd been avoiding them, knowing they disapproved of my choices, but not wanting to hear another lecture about throwing away a good thing. But I called anyway. "Idella, thank God," my mother said. "I've been so worried." "I'm fine, Mom." "Are you? Because Ruth Feld called me today. She's beside herself about Simon." My stomach dropped. Simon's mother and mine had become friendly over the years, bonding over their children's relationship. I'd forgotten about that connection. What did she say? That he's not sleeping, barely eating, and spending all his free time with lawyers and accountants. "Honey, what did you do?" "I didn't do anything. We broke up. People break up." Not like this. Not by humiliating someone publicly and then flaunting a new relationship before the old one is even cold. "I'm not flaunting anything." "Aren't you? Because Ruth showed me the pictures." "What pictures?" "From social media. You and that boy from high school, looking very cozy at various restaurants around town. Did you think no one would notice?" I had thought no one would notice. Or I'd hoped they wouldn't, but I'd underestimated how invested people were in my relationship with Simon, how many mutual friends we had, how small our world really was. "Mum, I'm 32 years old. I don't need permission to date." "You need common sense and common decency. That poor boy loved you, and you're parading around with his replacement like he never mattered." "Simon will be fine. He's a good guy. He'll find someone else." "Will he? Because according to his mother, he's talking like he'll never trust anyone again. Like you broke something in him that can't be fixed." The conversation ended badly, with my mother disappointed and me defensive, but her words stuck with me. "You broke something in him that can't be fixed." Had I? I'd never meant to hurt Simon, not really. I just wanted to feel alive again, to feel special and desired and worth fighting for. Was that really so wrong? But as I sat alone in the apartment that had once been ours, looking at the empty spaces where his life used to be, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a terrible mistake. Not because I didn't care about Brett, I did. Not because I wanted to go back to the routine I'd shared with Simon, I didn't. But because I was starting to realize that in my quest to feel special, I destroyed someone who had actually thought I was special all along. And now it might be too late to take any of it back. My phone buzzed again. "Brett, you okay? You seem distant lately." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Just tired. Rain check on dinner?" "Of course, get some rest. Love you." The casual love you should have made me happy. Instead, it made me feel hollow, because I was starting to understand the difference between someone who loved the idea of me and someone who had loved me, flaws and all, and I was very much afraid that I'd chosen the wrong one. It ended on an October Tuesday, 6 weeks after the reunion, when a man in a suit knocked and served me a civil complaint. The words blurred, but I saw public humiliation and damages. Simon was suing. By noon, a lawyer explained he'd documented everything: posts, witnesses, receipts, lies, and that cohabitation and shared finances made it actionable. The amount could ruin me. Then my supervisor called me in and fired me to protect the company's reputation. Brett acted supportive, but his voice shifted. By night, he was already looking for an exit. Alone, I finally understood. Consequences aren't dramatic, they're methodical.